Once upon a time, which happened to be last Tuesday, there lived a man named Barnaby Buttons. Barnaby was tall. Not just wow, you're tall, he was, did you get stuck in a taffy puller? Tall. His head poked through the clouds on foggy days, and birds often mistook his ears for convenient perches. But Barnaby's height wasn't the strangest thing about him. Not by a long shot. Barnaby had a secret, a crunchy, pearly white secret. He loved teeth. Not his own teeth, mind you. Those were fine. He loved other people's teeth. He found them absolutely positively scrumdiddlyumptious. You might think that's weird, and you'd be right. It is weird. Very weird. Most people collect stamps or bottle caps or those little plastic things that keep the pizza from smushing the top of the box. Barnaby Buttons collected teeth. He didn't just collect them though, he ate them. He crunched them like popcorn, munched them like potato chips, and savored them like the finest candy. He lived in a cave high on a hill, which was the only place big enough for him, and every night he dreamed of molars, canines, and incisors. His favorite flavor? Teeth that had recently chewed a lot of dim sum. This peculiar craving led Barnaby to a very specific routine. He wasn't a bad guy. He wouldn't dream of taking money. He never touched the leftover lo mein or the sweet and sour pork. He was a specialist, a connoisseur of calcium. Each night, after the last customer had paid their bill and the last wok had been scrubbed clean, Barnaby would begin his hunt. His targets were the hard-working staff of the local Chinese restaurants. He knew their teeth were the best, seasoned with the subtle hints of ginger, garlic, and soy sauce. He was, in his own strange way, a foodie. So, Barnaby wasn't a villain. Not really. He was just a very tall fellow with a very odd appetite. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted a little snack. A midnight nibble. He considered himself a tooth collector, a title he thought sounded quite grand and important. He had a special velvet-lined bag for his nightly haul, and he handled each tooth with the utmost care before popping it into his mouth. The world was his candy shop, and the smiles of restaurant workers were the most tempting treats on the display shelf. This is the story of how that candy shop nearly closed for good. Barnaby's method for acquiring his favorite snack was a work of art, if you consider being sneaky an art form. Which he did. Being as tall as a lamppost with an extra lamppost on top made sneaking difficult. He couldn't just slip through a keyhole, so he used his height to his advantage. He would wait until the restaurant, say, the Golden Dragon, was dark and quiet. Then, he would find the kitchen's rooftop vent. It was usually a small square opening meant for letting out steam. For Barnaby, it was a perfectly sized front door that just happened to be on the ceiling. He would gently lift the vent cover, fold himself up like a poorly made accordion, and lower himself down, down, down. His long, spindly legs would touch the floor first, silent as a spider's whisper. He moved through the dark kitchen with surprising grace for a man who could high-five a giraffe without standing on his tiptoes. He'd glide past the giant woks and the sacks of rice, his nose twitching. He wasn't smelling for food, he was sniffing for the faint, specific scent of sleeping dentist's nightmares. He was on the hunt for slumbering kitchen staff taking a well-deserved nap. Once he found a sleeping worker, a chef napping on a pile of flour sacks, or a waiter snoozing in a booth, the delicate part of the operation began. Barnaby carried a special tool, a single impossibly soft feather from a dodo bird. Don't ask where he got it. It's a long story involving a time machine and a very confused dodo. He would gently, so very gently, tickle the sleeping person's nose. The person would scrunch up their face, let out a little ah, 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 and then a big sleepy, jaw-stretching yawn. And that was his moment. As their mouth opened wide, Barnaby, with the speed of a hummingbird, would reach in with a pair of tiny velvet-tipped tongs. Plink, he'd snag a single unimportant molar from the very back. The person wouldn't feel a thing. They'd just finish their yawn, smack their lips, and roll over, completely unaware that they were now one tooth lighter. Barnaby would slip the prize into his bag, fold himself back up through the ceiling vent, and disappear into the night, a happy giant with a crunchy treat. The next morning at the Golden Dragon, Chef Wei woke up with a yawn. He stretched his arms and felt a strange little gap in the back of his mouth. Huh, he mumbled, poking the empty space with his tongue. He shrugged. Maybe it fell out in his sleep. He had more important things to worry about, like perfecting his Kung Pao chicken. But then, Lee, the head waiter, came in, also poking at his mouth. Chef, he said, I think I swallowed a tooth. Or maybe it ran away. Do teeth run away? This was getting weird. Soon everyone was checking their mouths. May, who washed the dishes, was missing a bicuspid. Old Mr. Chen, who folded the napkins, was short a canine. It was a dental disaster. There were no signs of a break-in. The cash register was full. The secret recipe for their famous dumplings was still safely locked away. The only things missing were teeth, a single tooth from each person. It was baffling. It was bewildering. It was frankly a little bit creepy. Who would do such a thing? What kind of thief steals teeth? The staff gathered in the main dining room, their voices a worried buzz. It must be a ghost, whispered May. A ghost with a dental fixation. Mr. Chen shook his head. Nonsense! It's probably a sign. The sign that we need to floss more. Chef Wei, a practical man, wasn't convinced by ghosts or flossing omens. Someone is sneaking in here at night, he declared. Someone very quiet and very, very strange. We need to figure out who this tooth thief is and how to stop them before we're all eating soup for the rest of our lives. They tried setting traps. The first night, they balanced a bucket of water on a door, but the thief didn't use the door. The next night, they scattered flour all over the floor to catch footprints. But in the morning, the flour was undisturbed, yet another tooth was gone. The thief was clever. They were dealing with a professional, a master of molar larceny. Chef Wei knew they needed a better plan. A plan so clever, so unexpected, that it would stop the tooth thief right in their tracks, and maybe, just maybe, teach them a lesson about snacking on other people's property. Chef Wei stayed up late, thinking. If the thief was after teeth for their flavor, as he suspected, then maybe the answer wasn't a trap, but a change in the menu. A very, very specific change. He gathered his staff the next morning. I have a plan, he announced, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. Tonight, before we nap, we will all eat this. He held up his secret weapon, a huge, pungent, overwhelmingly powerful bulb of garlic. Not just one clove, the whole thing. Each of them, raw. The staff groaned. But Chef, Li complained, our breath will be strong enough to peel paint. Chef Wei just smiled. Exactly, he said. Trust me. That night, with much reluctance and many pinched noses, the entire staff of the Golden Dragon chewed and swallowed whole bulbs of raw garlic. The air in the kitchen became thick and heavy with the smell. It was an aroma that could make an onion cry. Then one by one, they settled down for their nightly naps, their breath a potent weapon waiting to be unleashed. Right on schedule, Baranaby Buttons arrived. He lifted the roof vent and folded his lanky frame down into the kitchen. But the moment his feet touched the floor, he stopped. His nose twitched. What was that smell? It was overpowering. It was like a dragon had eaten nothing but garlic for a year and then burped directly into the room. Still, a craving is a craving. He crept over to the napping Chef Wei, pulled out his dodo feather and gave a gentle tickle. Ah, 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 chew. No, not a sneeze. A yawn, a big, wide, sleepy yawn. As Chef Wei's mouth opened, a wave of pure, uncut, weaponized garlic breath blasted Baranaby right in the face. It was horrific. It was eye-watering. It was the single most disgusting thing the Tooth Eater had ever experienced. Baranaby staggered backward, his eyes streaming. The delicious, savory flavor he craved was gone, replaced by a taste so foul it made his toes curl. He scrambled back up through the vent, gasping for fresh air. The next morning, the staff of the Golden Dragon woke up with all their teeth intact and very, very bad breath. Their plan had worked. Baranaby never came back for another garlicky bite, and from then on, he stuck to collecting stamps, which everyone agreed was much less weird.